The milk was expired. Not by a day or two. It was rank, thick, curdled at the lip of the carton. That's how I knew she hadn't been home. Marin drinks a glass of milk every night before bed like some kind of haunted Victorian orphan. It's weird. I always found it charming. But that morning, when I opened the fridge and saw the date, July 14th, my stomach dropped. It was August 3rd. She'd been working late all week. I stood there holding the carton like it might confess. I don't know how long I stood. 5 minutes? 10. The dog barked. My phone buzzed. Somewhere in the distance, a seagull screamed like it had just learned what taxes are. But my brain was stuck in one sentence. The milk was expired. She wasn't sleeping here. Not even sneaking back at 2 a.m. Not pouring her milk in silence while I snored. She was just gone. I checked the laundry. Her pajama pants were still folded in the same sloppy way she always did it. Tucked once, rolled sideways, never by color. Her toothbrush was dry. Her charger was gone. So was the necklace I gave her 2 birthdays ago. The one she said she'd never take off, even in the shower. She took it off. I opened the notes app on my phone. I typed. She took the necklace. The milk is expired. I think she's gone. That's when I noticed a 4th bullet point, already typed. In the notes app. Under my name. Ellis will never leave. He's too afraid to be alone. It wasn't my note. She'd written that. In my phone. I should have screamed. I should have thrown the phone across the room or knocked every plate off the counter. But all I did was sit on the kitchen floor, phone in one hand, expired milk in the other. And I started crying. The loud, messy kind. Because she was right. And she knew it. And now I was starting to remember the things I'd ignored. The other signs. The missing lighter from her art table. The smell of smoked clove cigarettes on her coat. She quit 2 years ago. The weird dream she couldn't remember that made her laugh in her sleep. I should have asked questions. But I didn't. Because I knew. And now, it wasn't a dream. It was a decision. And she made it without me. I didn't go to work that day. I sat on the kitchen floor for over an hour, staring at the crusted-over cap of the milk carton and replaying her note in my head. Ellis will never leave. He's too afraid to be alone. She typed that. On my phone. On purpose. That wasn't an accident. That was a quiet bullet aimed at my spine. Eventually, I stood up, wiped my face with a dish towel that smelled faintly of her cheap vanilla hand soap, and went upstairs to the studio. I didn't know why. I guess I wanted to see if she left something behind. Maybe a sketch, a receipt, a mistake. The door was locked. She never locks the studio. We don't even have keys for that door. It's just a room at the top of the house with skylights and a warped floor and a view of the ocean so perfect it almost hurts to look at. I jiggled the knob again. Nothing. So I grabbed a bobby pin from her makeup drawer. She leaves them everywhere, and picked the lock. It wasn't hard. The door isn't really built for keeping people out. The second I stepped inside, I knew something was wrong. The light was on. The space heater was running. And the whole room smelled like turpentine and charcoal and something else. Something sharp, like burned plastic and mint. And there, on the easel, was a new painting. One I'd never seen before. It was a man. In profile. Shirtless. His body thin but wiry, scarred on one shoulder, like a burn. The kind of detail you only notice if you've touched it. But the face was what got me. It wasn't just painted. It was obsessed over, layered in minute detail, every pore, every dimple, every barely there wrinkle under the eyes. This wasn't art. It was a confession. And this man was no stranger. I'd seen him before. At the farmer's market, helping her load jars of homemade jam into a paper bag. At the gas station once, in a black hoodie, tapping ash from a hand-rolled cigarette while she paid for kombucha. And once, just once, outside our lighthouse, by the cliffside, holding a camera, facing the sea. I thought he was a tourist. Or someone with a drone. Or nobody. But she painted him like he was everything. I staggered back, dizzy, and knocked over a stool. That's when I noticed the gloves, thick, bright blue latex gloves, crumpled in a ball under the easel. Who paints in gloves? Nobody. Not unless they're trying not to leave prints. And not unless they're using chemicals that shouldn't be touched with bare skin. There were no brushes, no rags, no jars of paint thinner. Just the painting, the gloves, and a single camera lens on the windowsill, detached, dusty, old. It didn't belong to her. And the weirdest thing? The painting wasn't signed. She signs everything. Even her practice canvases. But this one? Blank. Like it was never meant to be seen. Like it wasn't even meant to be hers. And then I noticed something even worse. There was another note, folded, tucked behind the radiator. On it, in her handwriting. If he finds this, I was wrong. No signature. No date. Nothing else. If who finds it? Me? Him? Someone else entirely? I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, listening to the radiator creak and the ocean beat itself against the rocks like it was trying to drown the house. I didn't even turn off the studio light. I just closed the door and left it burning upstairs, like a warning beacon. And the worst part? She texted me at 3:17 a.m. Don't go into the studio. I spilled something. It's toxic. Too late. And now, I'm starting to think the painting wasn't the only thing that's dangerous. I didn't reply to her 3:17 a.m. text. What was I supposed to say? Too late, babe. Already saw your shrine to the man with the C-wrecked hoodie. I just lay there, motionless under the quilt she made years ago, when love still came with stitching. It was always lumpy on one corner. Now it felt like it weighed 300 pounds. The sun came up, but it didn't feel like morning. The fog outside was so thick it looked like the sea had crept up the cliff and swallowed the sky. I sat by the window watching it, sipping coffee I couldn't taste. The studio light was still on upstairs. I hadn't dared go back in. Around 9 a.m., someone knocked on the door. Nobody knocks here. Our lighthouse is isolated. One road in, one road out. The mailman doesn't even get out of the truck. He honks and tosses our packages into a waterproof bin we keep by the gate. So when someone knocked, I just froze. 3 short knocks. Then a pause. Then 2 more. I opened the door slow, with my hand half gripping the fire poker from the fireplace. And there he was. Him. Not the painting version, the real one. The man from the cliff. The farmer's market. The burn-scarred shoulder was hidden beneath a thick navy coat, but the face was unmistakable. Lean. Pale. Unblinking. He smiled. But it wasn't a greeting. It was the kind of smile you wear when you've already won something the other person doesn't know they've lost. Hi there, he said. Sorry to intrude. I think Marin left her gloves at my place. My stomach dropped into my shoes. He held up a Ziploc bag. Inside were another pair of blue gloves, identical to the ones I found in the studio. Folded neatly, not crumpled. Like a trophy. She usually forgets things when she's working late, he added. There was no awkwardness in his voice. No shame. No fear. Just pure, casual dominance. As if I was the guest in my own house. I'll be sure to give them to her, I managed to say. My voice sounded like it belonged to someone much smaller than me. He nodded, handed me the bag, and then, without a word, looked past me, into the house. Like he was checking to see if his things were still in the right place. And that's when I noticed something else. His shoes. They were soaked. Not damp, dripping. Salt stains on the edges, soles half detached like they'd been boiled in brine. But it hadn't rained for days. The only water nearby was the ocean. The cliff. The rocks. I closed the door before I could say something stupid like, "Were you swimming in my marriage?" I watched him walk away through the peephole. He didn't glance back. He walked down the long gravel road and vanished into the fog like he was never really there. I went back into the kitchen, dropped the gloves on the table, and just stared at them. I couldn't bring myself to throw them away. Something about them felt significant, like evidence. At 10:13 a.m., Marin texted again. Did you talk to anyone this morning? No good morning. No, I love you. Just that. A question packed like a loaded gun. I didn't answer. Instead, I went back up to the studio. Something was gnawing at me. The smell from the night before, turpentine, charcoal, and that strange mint plastic scent. It was still in the air, but now faint. Almost masked. The painting was gone. So were the gloves. The space heater was turned off, the windows cracked slightly open, and the dust on the shelves had been wiped in weird, erratic patterns. Like someone had rushed to clean without really knowing what they were erasing. But they missed something. Under the easel, caught between 2 warped floorboards, was a shard of glass. A broken lens? I picked it up, held it to the light. It was too thick for a camera, too beveled. Then I realized it wasn't glass from a lens. It was from a mirror, which meant someone had been watching themselves paint, or being watched while painting, or both. I don't know which thought chilled me more. But now, I can't shake this feeling that what I thought was infidelity might be something else entirely. Something stranger. Something I'm not equipped to understand. Because when I looked out the studio window with that glass shard in my hand, I noticed something written in the fog on the outside of the pane. Letters. Crude. smeared with something dark. I'm not him. I stepped back. And suddenly, I wasn't afraid of Marin leaving. I was afraid of her coming back. I didn't leave the house that day. I told my boss I had a fever, which wasn't even a lie because my skin was cold and damp, and my thoughts felt like they were boiling. I walked in circles around the kitchen, occasionally checking the upstairs studio window, where the fog still pressed against the glass like it wanted to be let in. The phrase written there, "I'm not him," was gone by noon. Whether it melted away naturally or Marin wiped it off, I can't say. But I keep seeing it in my mind, etched not in fog, but in something deeper, something personal. She used to hate mirrors. That was always a thing with her. In our old apartment, before the lighthouse, she covered the bathroom mirror with a towel because she said she couldn't focus when her own face was watching her think. When I bought her a vanity for our bedroom one Christmas, she laughed politely, then shoved it into the hallway 6 days later. Too many angles, she said. So why was she painting in front of one now? Why did she smash it? What was she looking for? I needed answers, or at least I needed noise in my head that wasn't just the echo of questions. So I walked out the back door and followed the narrow cliffside trail that winds behind the house. It's a rocky path lined with wind-bent trees and dried moss, leading to a crumbling shed we inherited with the property. The previous owner, an old sailor named Clyde, used it to store fish traps. Now it was just a place where things went to be forgotten. The door creaked like it hadn't moved in years, but it opened. Dust exploded into my face like a scolding. Inside, old ropes, rusted lanterns, a folded American flag in a plastic crate. But something caught my eye immediately. A stack of canvases wrapped in black trash bags, shoved behind an upturned lobster crate. I pulled one out. The bag was sealed with duct tape. Messy, desperate, hasty. Inside, a painting. Not finished, but almost. A woman. Her face was obscured by shadow, but her hair, bright, copper red, was unmistakably Marin's. Only her eyes were clear, and they were staring directly at the viewer. Not lovingly, not thoughtfully, accusingly. And there was a figure behind her in the painting, barely visible in the background. Long-limbed, indistinct, but clearly there, watching. The second canvas was worse. It was me, sleeping. The image was so accurate it could have been a photograph. My mouth slightly open the way it is when I dream. My left hand curled over the corner of the blanket. The alarm clock on the bedside table frozen at 3:12 a.m. But there was no way she could have painted that from memory. She would have needed reference. She would have needed a photo. Or she would have needed to be there, in the room, watching me sleep, over and over, night after night. Studying, memorizing, composing. The third canvas made me fall backwards. It was the man. Again. This time his face was burning. Not symbolically. Not artistically. Flames were rising from his mouth. Eyes darkened with ash. Skin curling like paper near the jawline. His left arm extended outward, like he was reaching for something, or someone, just outside the frame. And in the corner of the painting, in red, smudged letters, "You are not me." I left the shed without even sealing the door. The wind howled louder now, and the gulls above circled like something had died. When I reached the house, I saw her car parked by the front gate. Marin was home, and she was already inside. I entered slowly, quietly. The house smelled like citrus cleaner and oil paints. The sound of the washing machine thumped rhythmically from the back room, but I couldn't hear her. "Marin," I called out. No answer. I climbed the stairs, checking each room. Bathroom, empty. Bedroom, empty. Studio. The door was shut. Not locked, just shut. I placed my hand on the knob, hesitating, then opened it with a push. She wasn't there, but the painting was back on the easel. Only now, the man's eyes had been painted over in pure black. Pitch black. Absorbing. Matte. No gloss. No light. Two voids staring back at me. And taped beneath the canvas, in her handwriting, was a scrap of paper that read, "Stop looking where I hide things. He doesn't like it." That night, I locked every door in the house. And I slept in the bathtub with the lights on. Not because I thought she'd hurt me, but because I was no longer sure which version of her had come home. Marin didn't speak a word to me that night. She came in through the back door as if nothing had happened, a grocery bag in one hand, her headphones still dangling from her ears. She gave me a quick glance, then opened the fridge and stared into it for too long, like she didn't recognize any of the food. "Milk's bad," I said without turning my head. "I know," she replied, almost automatically. She took out a lemon, closed the fridge, and just held it in her palm like a stress ball. For nearly 5 minutes she stood there, back to me, in complete silence, squeezing and relaxing, squeezing and relaxing. That's when I knew something was truly broken between us. Not cracked. Broken. Like whatever fragile trust was holding our reality together had already been swept off the table, and now we were just standing around pretending it hadn't shattered. I didn't ask about the studio. I didn't ask about the man with the ruined eyes, or the fog on the window, or the gloves, or the bag of soaked shoes, or the shed. Instead, I asked her if she wanted tea. She said yes. We sat across from each other at the tiny kitchen table, the one we bought at a thrift store in Portland during the first month of marriage, when everything felt new and unscripted. She didn't look up. She stared into the steam like it was a portal she was trying to climb through. And eventually, without even changing her tone, she said, "You used to talk in your sleep." I blinked. I didn't know that. You don't anymore. You've stopped dreaming. Or at least you've stopped saying the dreams out loud. I think that's when it started. What started? She didn't answer. And I didn't push. At some point, she got up and went to bed. I stayed downstairs, eyes on the studio door like it might open on its own. But it didn't. Hours passed. I dozed off in the chair around 2 a.m., only to jolt awake at 3:12 exactly. The same time on the alarm clock in that painting of me. I couldn't explain why, but I stood up and walked upstairs. Not into the studio, but into the storage loft above the main bedroom. Marin never goes up there. It's where we keep the boxes of old tax returns, holiday decorations, and her things from before we met. Sketchbooks, old canvases, zines from the art school she never finished. I had no reason to go there. Except, I did. The moment I opened the door, I felt it. A shift in temperature. The room was cold, unnaturally so. The tiny attic window was closed, but the air had that still, ancient weight, like something had been sealed up here for years. Dust floated like spores. I turned on the bulb. There, wedged between two crates of Halloween masks and tangled string lights, was a wooden box I'd never seen before. Heavy, locked, ornate, with carved vines and strange lettering along the edges. I don't remember bringing it up here, but I knew it was hers, and I knew I wasn't supposed to open it. But I did. Inside were several things. A ring, not hers, men's style, too small for me. A clump of red hair, tied neatly with a black ribbon. A Polaroid photo, face down. When I turned it over, my breath caught. It was me, asleep. In our bed. Same as the painting. But this time, in the corner of the image, partially blurred, was another figure. Tall, pale, wearing what looked like diving gear. His face was obscured, not by motion, but by absence. It was just blank. Below the photo was a journal. Handwritten. Marin style. Neat, slanted cursive. Inside, no dates, no titles. Just short entries. He's getting impatient. I'm painting faster now, but I think he's watching Ellis too. I've asked him to stop. Ellis still doesn't see it. Doesn't hear it. That means it's not too late. The dreams are crossing over. I heard the water in the walls again. It speaks in spirals. If he finds this journal, it means I failed. That line was underlined twice. I sat on the floor, journal in one hand, Polaroid on my lap, heart pounding in my throat. Everything in my body screamed, "Put it back, pretend you never saw it." But my fingers kept turning pages. He said I could fix it. Just one more portrait. Just one more. He said Ellis would understand if I did it gently. That he wouldn't suffer. That I could still keep the skin. I'm sorry. I closed the book so fast I nearly crushed my fingers. I left everything exactly where I found it, backed out of the attic, and closed the door like I was sealing a crypt. Downstairs, Marin was still asleep. I stood in the hallway outside our bedroom and listened to her breathing. And then I realized. She wasn't breathing. She was mimicking the sound of breath. Like someone pretending to sleep. I didn't go in. I didn't wake her. I just stood there for 20 minutes, afraid to move. And when I finally turned back toward the staircase, there was a new painting propped against the studio door. It was me again. Only this time, I was awake. And in the painting, I was smiling. But I've never smiled like that. Not once in my life. The next morning, the painting of me smiling was gone. Not moved. Gone. I stood outside the studio for 10 minutes, just staring at the empty space where it had been leaning the night before. I even reached down and touched the floor to make sure I hadn't hallucinated it. There was dust, yes, but a clean rectangular shape in the center of it, proof that something had been there. Something had been standing there long enough to leave a mark in the dust. Something with weight. I opened the door, expecting to find Marin inside, maybe finishing another version, maybe laughing at my confusion, maybe pretending she hadn't gaslit me into doubting my own eyes. But the room was cold. Empty. The canvas on the easel had changed again. Now it was just color. Not a face. Not a figure. Just raw, terrifying color. A spiral of reds and grayish whites that reminded me of a whirlpool I once saw as a kid when a ferry's wake ripped through a calm bay and created this hungry, spinning hole in the water. I remember my father saying, "If you ever fall in one of those, you won't come back up looking the same." That was what the painting felt like. And that was when the realization hit me. All this time I'd been looking at the paintings, at her secrets, at the man with the gloves and the soaked shoes and the burn on his shoulder, thinking he was stealing her, that he was seducing her or manipulating her, or, at worst, threatening her. But it wasn't like that. He wasn't taking Marin away from me. He was replacing me, and I think she was helping him do it. That day passed in a haze. I didn't eat. I didn't leave the house. Marin was there, somewhere. I heard her moving occasionally, floorboards creaking, water running in the sink for exactly 11 seconds at a time, a chair dragging against the floor upstairs, and then silence again. We didn't speak. We didn't see each other. It was like two ghosts living in opposite versions of the same house. It wasn't until late evening, when I finally worked up the nerve to go back to the attic, that everything changed. I told myself I just wanted to destroy the journal. Burn it, toss it into the sea, anything. I figured that if I could eliminate that object, I could regain some control. But when I opened the attic door, I stopped cold. The journal was no longer in the box. It was laid out, perfectly centered, on top of the Halloween crate, open to a page I hadn't seen before. One word, written over and over again like a chant. Vessel, 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 vessel. And beneath it, the smile must match. I didn't move. My legs went numb. I felt something slide through me. Not wind, not fear. Something else. Like a draft made of memory. Like the moment right before a faint, when the edges of the world grow soft and the silence between your thoughts gets louder. Then I heard a click downstairs, followed by another. Then footsteps. Not fast, not aggressive, but impossibly steady, deliberate. I crept to the attic stairs and peeked down, expecting to see Marin maybe moving around the kitchen or grabbing a drink. It wasn't her. It was the man, in my house, standing in front of the fireplace, wearing my clothes, my actual clothes. The sweater I wore on our anniversary in Bar Harbor. The faded jeans with the stitched knee. He was facing away from me, but I could see his shoulders. The exact shape. My stance. Even the way he shifted his weight from one leg to the other. He did it exactly like I do when I'm nervous. I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. Then he turned slightly, just enough to reveal the edge of his face. And that's when I understood the real horror. He wasn't copying me. He was improving me. Sharper jawline, calmer eyes, cleaner posture, softer mouth. It was like someone had taken my essence and dialed it forward, refined it, sanded off all the noise and fear and desperation. He was the version of me she would choose if she had a clean slate. And Marin? She was behind him, not touching, just standing there, watching me watch him, her face blank. I didn't scream. I didn't move. I closed the attic door with shaking hands and stepped back into the dark. I stayed there the whole night, pressed between old Christmas boxes and broken coat racks, listening to them speak to each other in the kitchen below, quietly, rhythmically, like rehearsing lines from a play, like a couple who had known each other for years. At one point, I think I heard her laugh. Not the way she laughs at my jokes. No, this was the soft, high kind of laugh. The kind I hadn't heard in years. The kind she used to make when she was falling in love. And the worst part? It sounded like they were laughing at something I hadn't done yet. I didn't come down from the attic until the sun had fully risen and painted the kitchen window in a sheet of cold gold. I waited until the voices stopped, until the quiet became suspicious again. I moved slowly, legs numb, back stiff from sleeping curled up between two boxes of deflated holiday inflatables and a plastic bin full of old receipts. Every creak in the floorboards felt like I was stepping on the neck of something asleep. When I finally made it to the bottom of the stairs, the house was perfect. That's the only word I can use. The clutter was gone. The dust that had collected on the sideboard beneath the window, gone. The chipped mug I'd left in the sink for 2 days, washed, dried, put away. The warped placemat that Marin always refused to throw out, ironed. There was even a bowl of fruit on the counter. Perfect bananas. Apples without bruises. A single orange with a sticker that read imported. There was music playing, too. Low. Vinyl. Jazz. The kind you hear in indie movie scenes where couples slow dance in warm kitchens. And there, in the middle of it all, was him. Wearing one of my old t-shirts, barefoot, humming along. He turned when he heard me, and smiled. That same smile I saw in the painting. The one I've never made with my actual face. Morning, he said. Calm. Relaxed. Like we were roommates and I had overslept. Hope you don't mind. I tidied up. Place was looking kind of neglected. I stared at him, unable to speak. He handed me a mug of coffee. My favorite kind. Brewed perfectly. The exact ratio of cream to sugar. It smelled like comfort. Like home. But I didn't drink it. Where's Marin? I asked, my voice dry and cracking. She's resting. Long night. He sipped his own coffee and sat down at the table with the easy, casual confidence of someone who belonged there. You need to leave, I said. But even as I said it, my voice betrayed me. It sounded weak. Performed. He raised his eyebrows, not angrily. More like he was surprised I hadn't figured it out yet. Ellis, he said gently. I think we both know that's not how this works anymore. I stared at him hard. Searching for flaws. Imperfections. Something to prove that I was still real and he was the intrusion. But he looked better. Healthier. His skin clearer. His shoulders straighter. Even the tiny scar on my left eyebrow, the one I got from falling off my bike at 9, he had that too. But his looked more symmetrical, less clumsy. And then I saw it. The painting. Propped casually on the mantel behind him. It was me. Again. But this time, I was standing beside Marin. Our arms around each other. Eyes forward. Smiling. Not the fake, eerie smile from before. This one looked earned. Like a wedding photo taken on a second chance. A do-over. A better version. And in the corner of the canvas, in small black brushstroke letters, was a title. After. Did you paint that? I asked, still not looking away. He tilted his head. No, he said. She did. Last night. While you were hiding. I don't remember throwing the mug. I just remember it shattering against the painting, splashing coffee across the glass, staining the canvas brown like a wound. He didn't flinch. Just looked at me like a disappointed parent. Not angry. Just sad I couldn't understand the bigger picture. You can't just walk into someone's life and become them, I shouted. You don't get to rewrite everything. You're not real. You're not me. I'm not trying to be you, he said quietly. That's the part you're not seeing. You were always temporary. The words knocked the breath out of me. What does that mean? I whispered. He stood up, walked slowly to the kitchen drawer, the one with the batteries and takeout menus and scissors. He pulled out a key. I'm going to give you one last chance to let go gracefully, he said. You can leave now. Walk out that door, and whatever happens next won't have to be messy. What happens if I don't? He looked at me with something close to pity. Then she'll have to finish the final painting. The true one. And once that's done, well, let's just say the version of you that's left won't have a place to sleep anymore. He walked back to the table, sipped his coffee again, and looked at me over the rim of the mug. You were always afraid of being replaced, he said. But the truth is, Ellis, you gave her permission. I never. You stopped seeing her. You stopped being curious. You stopped becoming anything new. And when you stopped becoming, something else stepped in to become for you. I turned and walked out of the room before I did something irreversible. I didn't know where I was going. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get my coat on. I left the house and ran. Not to the cliffs, not to the shed, but into the woods beyond the back trail. The pines swallowed me, their silence so thick it felt like velvet. I walked until my legs gave out, and that's when I heard it. Not footsteps, not voices, but a brush. On canvas, somewhere behind the trees. Rhythmic, careful, confident. And I realized she was painting again. Not in the house. Out here. And maybe, just maybe, she was already finishing the version of me who wouldn't come back. The sound of the brush carried through the trees like a memory I hadn't earned yet. I followed it, step by step. No longer running, just walking. The woods felt softer now. The air had that clean, charged taste that comes after a storm. I thought of the note Marin had once written in the journal He doesn't like it when I hide things. And I realized maybe this painting wasn't hidden at all. Maybe it was waiting. I came to a clearing. Small. Circular. Ringed by fallen trees that had been dragged into strange arrangements, like a frame. And there, in the center of it all, Marin sat. Alone. No easel this time. No gloves. Just her, a single canvas balanced on her knees, a brush in one hand, palette in the other. Her hair was wild from the wind, her cheeks flushed with focus. She didn't look up. I thought you were gone, I said gently. I thought so too, she replied, just as softly. I stepped closer. She still didn't meet my eyes. Her brush moved with calm precision, laying down the final strokes of something I couldn't see yet. I waited. Not because I was afraid to interrupt, but because I felt I wasn't allowed. There was something sacred about the moment, like a wound being sewn shut without anesthesia. Finally, she paused, looked up at me. You're still here, she said. Not a question. More like a fact she was confirming aloud, just to make sure the world hadn't shifted beneath her again. I am, I said, even if I don't know why. She turned the canvas around. It was me, but not the painted smile. Not the manipulated, improved version. It was me, the way I hadn't seen myself in years. Softer around the edges. Tired. Sad maybe. But alive. Real. There were lines beneath my eyes, the kind that come from years of squinting into too much light. My posture was slumped, but not defeated. My hands were stained with something. Paint? Dirt? Time. And my mouth, it was half open. Not smiling. Not frowning. Becoming. That's the one I wanted to finish, she whispered. I stared at it for a long time. I wanted to ask what happened to the others. The studio. The man. The shadows behind the glass. The version of me who brewed coffee perfectly and quoted jazz lyrics like vows. But I didn't. Because I realized now, he was never the threat. He was a mirror. A challenge. A warning. And maybe I had needed to see what I could become, not to be afraid of it, but to choose not to. I don't want perfect, Marin said, setting the brush down. I want true. Even when it hurts. Even when it breaks. I'm not easy to love, I replied. I never asked you to be. She stood up and walked to me. For the first time in what felt like years, we looked at each other without armor. No sarcasm. No posing. Just breath between us. And then, gently, she placed the painting in my hands. You're the version I waited for, she said. The one who didn't run. I smiled. Not the painted kind. The real one. And for the first time in months, I felt like myself. Not erased, not replaced, not unfinished. Just finally enough. The fog began to lift around the trees. A warm wind swept through the branches, and the silence didn't feel empty anymore. It felt like the prelude to something worth beginning. We walked back to the house together. And this time, when we opened the door, it didn't feel like something was waiting to take my place. It felt like I had finally arrived.